It's last day of summer 1997. The world is shocked with the loss of one of the most favorite personas of 20th century, Princess Diana. The square in front of Kensington Palace, her last home, is filled with such amount of flowers that it disturbs road traffic. People all over the world are mourning her loss. Who was this woman that touched so many hearts? What was she like? And how did she manage to change the world we live in? Today, we will try to answer this and so many more questions about her life. Let's talk about Princess Diana, the Queen of Hearts. Hi, my name is Ilona. I'm a female coach and author of this women empowering blog. This is a video from my cycle, Women Who Changed the World. Let's get started. Once upon a time, there was a beautiful little girl. She had golden hair and a kind nature. Unfortunately, she had an evil stepmother, but she was so hardworking and loving that one day a true Prince Charming found her. This is the beginning of the fairy tale Cinderella, but it also is a beginning of Princess Diana's story. Those who used to say that Princess Diana is a true-life Cinderella weren't much away from truth. Yes, she comes from a noble background and used to live in a real estate. But if you remember the fairy tale correctly, Cinderella also had noble parents and also lived in a big mansion. By the way, the mansion where Diana spent her early years was leased from Queen Elizabeth II, and Diana called her Aunt Lilibet. Of course, later, the family moved to the Althorp estate, where Diana is buried. When she was 7, her parents divorced, and that's how Diana got her evil stepmother Reign, who she and her siblings used to call the Acid Reign. Diana later confessed that her childhood was very unhappy and unstable. Academically, Diana wasn't too successful. She would fail her exams multiple times. However, she was very talented in sports, music, and dancing. And since early childhood, she was amazing with people. Later, after she left school, she worked as a nanny and as a teacher assistant, therefore becoming the first Princess of Wales who had a paying job before becoming British royalty. Diana first met Charles, future Charles III, when she was a teenager. She was 20 when he proposed to her. He was 33, and his heart wasn't free as well. He dated many ladies, including Diana's elder sister Sarah, and he already has met the love of his life, Camilla Parker Bowles. However, Camilla was not a suitable bride for the future monarch. Young Diana was a perfect bride though, coming from nobility, with a perfect reputation, and a virgin. I really feel like we're talking about some 16th century marriage, because nobody cared about her education, or aspirations, or her personality. All they cared about was, well, I don't want to say it again. After Diana was officially presented to the royal family as the future bride, Queen Elizabeth said, "She is one of us." This is how this moment was presented in The Crown.
Wales has kindly promised to take me fishing. I'm hoping it'll be my first time in Scotland when I manage to catch something other than a cold.
I can't give up. Is this one a friend or a girlfriend? In the balance, I think. Hence the invitation up here, to see if she sings. Or swims.
I kind of feel like this moment is very far from truth. Charles and Diana's fairy tale wedding took place on 29th July 1981. In front of 600,000 spectators and another 750 million people watching their wedding from their TV. That's when Diana started her one-person revolution against British royal traditions. During the ceremony, she removed the promise to obey her husband, which caused a lot of comment at the time. You know what's interesting? People all over the world are fighting for female rights and gender equality, but when it comes to their rulers, people are not ready to give them the same rights. And I feel like the situation didn't change much since Diana's time. Little note, Camilla showed up to the wedding to the St. Paul's Cathedral wearing a white dress. Have you ever noticed that every fairy tale ends with a wedding? Nobody wants to know what's coming next, because what's coming next is not always pretty, and sometimes really ugly. To the outside world, Diana's married life seemed like a next chapter in her fairy tale. Just few months after the wedding, her pregnancy was announced. Next year, Prince William was born, and 2 years later, Prince Harry. Therefore, Diana fulfilled her main responsibility, she produced an heir and a spare. She went so much further than that, however, breaking royal protocol once again. She was intransigent when it came to her children, choosing their clothes, activities, and even accompanying them to school personally as often as she could. Behind the curtains, though, family life wasn't as cloudless. Diana later confessed that during that period she was suffering from postpartum depression, bulimia, and self-destructing thoughts. The fairy tale finished few years later, when Charles renewed his relationship with Camilla Parker Bowles. Diana stayed in the Kensington Palace with her boys, and Charles moved to the Highgrove estate, just 10 minutes drive from Camilla's home. That's how this crowded marriage, as Diana described it, looked like. She said there were 3 of them. However, there was so much more people in that marriage. Apart from her, Charles, and Camilla, there was also Camilla's husband and Diana's lovers. Society found out about everything soon enough in the famous Tampon-Gate scandal. This was a private conversation between Charles and Camilla that leaked into the press. During that talk, Charles said he wanted to live in Camilla's trousers. This is how this scandalous moment was presented in The Crown.
Oh, darling, I just want you now.
Do you? So do I.
Desperately, desperately.
God, I wish I could just live inside your trousers or something. It's so much easier.
What are you going to turn into, a pair of knickers?
Oh, God forbid, a Tampax, and just my luck.
The text of the conversation in the series was taken from the actual conversation that happened between Camilla and Charles. I will leave the link below this video if you want to go through it. As a public humanitarian figure, Diana was always more successful and cherished than her husband, Charles. Sources close to the couple claim that Charles was always annoyed with the amount of attention Diana used to get. Once they were walking on the street and people from his side of the street were asking him about Diana. They wanted to see her, not him. So he replied, "I wish I could split my wife in half." I'm sure he meant it. One might wonder if all members of the royal family are involved in the huge amount of charity work, why Diana's contribution had such an impact. Well, it seems like her charity work was a true passion of hers. She didn't do it just because it was her duty. She did it because she cared, and cared deeply. She didn't focus on the formal side of the responsibilities, wave right, left, done. No, she tried to genuinely connect with people she met. Here is what she said about this in her famous interview to BBC.
I was compelled to go out and do my engagements and not let people down and support them and love them. And in a way, by being out in public, they supported me, although they weren't aware just how much healing they were giving me, and it carried me through.
Let's talk about some of her most impactful deeds. In 1987, Diana was visiting a hospital with HIV patients. At that time, there was a lot of stigma related to these patients. Can they be touched? Can they safely live and work alongside us? What Diana did, she removed her gloves and shook hands of all the patients. This simple gesture did so much more than health education could have done in years. The whole world instantly found out that yes, HIV-positive people can safely live among us. The People's Magazine described this simple gesture of Princess as the most important thing a royal's done in 200 years. In 1997, Diana handpicked 79 dresses from her personal wardrobe to sell at Christie's auction. $5 million were raised at that auction to benefit AIDS and cancer patients. Another noticeable campaign of hers took part in Angola. Diana went there to support Red Cross campaign against using landmines. By that point, Angola was involved in a civil war for the past 25 years. Landmines were widely used in the conflict, killing both military people and civilians. What Diana did, she wore protective equipment and walked through a recently cleared minefield. These photos of her went all over the world, and since then, 164 countries banned using landmines. Remember the Tampon-Gate scandal? Well, this embarrassing incident wasn't the end of royal marriage. Even when Charles publicly admitted adultery, followed by Diana's famous appearance in the revenge dress, even then, royal marriage wasn't officially over. The end came when Diana decided to open up to public, when she decided to tell her own story in her own words. After that famous BBC interview, Queen asked the spouses to divorce. I honestly can't understand why her words became such a bomb, that even today it's hard to access and watch that interview. By that point, everyone knew about the problems in their marriage. But still, when Diana opened up and said it with her own words, that's the border that the royal family couldn't allow her to cross. Summer 1997. Diana is divorced, but she still keeps her princess title and she still remains to be one of the most important humanitarian figures in the world. That's when the landmine campaign took place, for example. And she is in a relationship with a very special person. This relationship is not mentioned as often as her affair with Dodi Al-Fayed, even though, and I have no doubt of that, it was way more important to Diana. I'm talking about her 2-year relationship with the Pakistani heart surgeon Hasnat Khan. They say she was so in love with this person, she went to Pakistan to meet his family. Hasnat Khan, however, had different plans. He wasn't ready to have a life in front of cameras like the one Diana had. He knew that his profession, his upbringing, his traditions wouldn't let them to have a future together. So they broke up, and after that, Diana went for a vacation with Dodi Al-Fayed. I honestly can't understand that. That was her last vacation. It finished on 31st August 1997 under the Alma Bridge in Paris. Remember I told you that 750 million people watched her wedding? Well, 2.5 billion people watched her funeral. People were mourning her loss as if she was their family member. I guess as a people's princess, she was way more interesting to public than a virgin able to produce an heir to the throne. I believe one of the things why she is so loved even today is because despite being a royalty, a media person, and world's famous humanitarian, she managed to stay vulnerable and therefore relatable. She showed us that you don't need to be a superhuman to do superhuman things. Thank you for watching. Comment under this video what do you think about Princess Diana. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and I will see you in my next video. Bye bye.